Hello and welcome to Türkiye Talks. We are going to talk about recent developments with Kadir Üstün from Washington. Hi Kadir, how are you?
Hi Bora, how are you?
Thanks. Let's start with, if you like, Ukrainian-Russian conflict. Recently, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres came to Turkey. He had a meeting with Turkish president and he flew to Kiev and Moscow. And he continued his diplomatic efforts. We are in the third month of the armed conflict, and the fighting is still going on. Ukrainian cities are still being bombarded by Russians, and Ukrainians are continuing their resistance. And we are seeing heavy and fierce fighting in different places. And also, there was an ongoing talks. Peace, at least ceasefire negotiations between the two sides. Turkey was one of the facilitators in these meetings. But now, in the third month of the conflict, personally, I don't see a quick end to the fighting. But in what stage are we? What is your assessment on that? And let's talk about Guterres' mission. If he has any chance of success.
Thank you, Bora. I think you're more you're better placed to comment on the reaction in Turkey. Maybe you'll touch upon that after my comments. But from Washington, the way it looks, I would agree with you. It's going to last a long time. There won't be a quick resolution of this conflict, and then the U.S. is changing its rhetoric and even the conception of this conflict. The recent visit by the Defense, Secretary Austin to the region and his remarks about weakening Putin. Saying that the United States would like to see a weakened Russia and that Ukraine will win. Secretary of State Blinken also said this. So the U.S. seems like they foresee a prolonged conflict, and they're going to do everything they can to help Ukraine win, quote unquote. Of course, winning. It's hard to define what winning looks like. However, that seems to be the United States strategy right now. So there's been some critics of these announcements because Russia has used these comments to say that, look, the United States is after me. My real enemy is, the United States, not Ukraine. So it gives some fuel to that kind of argument on the Russian side. So the defense secretary was criticized for saying that by some, but others congratulated him, saying basically, being much more upfront and confrontational and push back against Russia, and that's the only language Russia understands. So there's that kind of debate in the United States about what the United States is doing. Like you mentioned, Guterres' visit, of course, it's probably not going to produce anything imminently. He visited Moscow, and Putin's remarks afterwards. Again, there were different arguments about that. Some people saw it as kind of giving unnecessary or undue power to Putin's position, recognition of his position as a legitimate position, something like that. Anyway, long story short, I think these diplomatic efforts, when, as we saw, Guterres came to Turkey first, so that shows the critical role Turkey has played in the past, and President Erdogan just made some, statements and called on. He had a phone call with Putin and asked him to meet with Zelensky in Istanbul. So Turkey continues to push hard on this. But as I said at the beginning, maybe you can tell us a bit more about how it was perceived in Turkey, Guterres' visit and Turkey's diplomatic efforts as well.
Yeah, I think, as you said, Turkey sees itself in a special position in this crisis. And I think Turkey has not given up hope of bringing two sides together. But remember the Bucha moment that we have talked about earlier put another burden on this possible meeting because of the mass graves which were found by the Ukrainians after Russians withdrew. And the reaction to that, also the international reaction to this incident, put talks into jeopardy. Russians, on the one hand, they seem to be interested in these talks in one way or another, because when we listen to Putin's statements, okay, he is very clear, he's hard, he pursue his goals, but at the same time, he doesn't close the door for talks. Similarly, Zelensky side, they are using very hard narrative, hard rhetoric against Russia. But because of this war, Ukrainians are suffering. Millions of people have left their homes and country, and also the cities are being destroyed. So it will create a great cost to Ukrainians, not for now, but for the future. So it is a difficult situation. In peace processes, there is a term, mutual hurting stalemate. I don't know if both sides have reached that moment, but the consequences of war affecting both sides. Russia, okay, we have listened to Putin. He spoke to the parliament, and he said the Western sanctions didn't affect as much as they thought, but still the impact of the sanctions and all these conflict will be realized in later period, maybe next year. So from Putin's side, we can say, okay, he still wants to pursue the goal, but maybe Russians has not reached that hurting stalemate. But I think it is not far for both sides. So from Turkish point of view, Turkey is still investing these negotiations, because as a country at the center of the Black Sea region, having close ties with Russians, having close ties with Ukrainians, Turkey has interests in having good relations with both countries. So probably one of the nations which will benefit from a ceasefire will be Turkey. So Turkey is still investing, and as the party which has contacts with two sides, with Ukrainians and Russians, I think Turkey is in a special position, and Turkey is sharing what it has with United Nations, with other countries, in order to bring both sides together. I think Turkish president's visit, I think Guterres' visit to Turkey and his meeting with Turkish president was important in that sense. Turkey shared its knowledge and information, or the know-how, let me say, about what's going on between these two countries, and trying to bring more partners into equation to put maybe pressure on both sides to bring them to the negotiation table. I think we are far from a meeting than we had before the Bucha incident, but I think as the fighting goes on and the costs of the war increase, I think Putin and Zelensky at some point will, at least if they not themselves, not in person, but with their delegations, will continue to negotiate at least a ceasefire, because both parties are losing a lot, especially Ukrainians. So I think this is the position right now. And Guterres' visit to Kiev and Moscow after Turkish president's meeting here in Turkey, the messages actually given by United Nations was not strong, and I think Turkey is still one of the strongest elements in bringing these two sides into negotiating table. I don't know,
Bora.
what is, yeah.
You're right, Bora. I mean, we've discussed this multiple times. Turkey as a regional power with interests with, both countries, relationships with both countries. And in recent years, in the past 2 decades, let's say, the United Nations role in sort of finding common ground, striking agreements, bringing sides together, that kind of strength of the United Nations has unfortunately diminished. I don't recall the last time a major conflict was resolved through the United Nations. It's been a long time. That's partly because, after 9/11, United States went, alone in especially invading Iraq with its allies, but not too many. Anyway, that changed the whole international dynamics, and the United Nations Security Council has been under the influence of great powers and their interests. In this case, we are seeing the same thing. United Nations Security Council has not been able to do anything about Russia's war in Ukraine. So its role has been diminishing in recent years, and perhaps Guterres's visit, Guterres's efforts are geared towards sort of strengthening UN's profile and bringing it back into the sort of world of diplomacy as a serious player. But I don't think that will happen anytime soon, and regional powers are going to be much more critical. Of course, Turkey supports all diplomatic efforts, including those by France. And it's urgent. It's urgent for Turkey that there's a ceasefire, there's a peace talks and peace negotiations, because this is impacting the economy, the world economy. You probably saw it in the news. Russia now blocked gas exports to Poland and Romania, which shot up the price of natural gas by like 17%. We are already going through COVID restrictions in China are still harsh. So it's contributing as a factor in pulling the world economy down, and there's inflation, there's supply chain issues, etc. So the war in Ukraine has global implications. At the same time, as I mentioned earlier, the United States is increasing its support to Ukraine, and they're even bringing back the embassy to Kiev soon. So that strengthens the UN side, Ukraine's side in their potential talks with Russia. But like you mentioned, at this time, Ukraine is not ready to give up any territory, which can prolong the conflict, obviously, and I don't expect them to accept that. But it will probably prolong the conflict until the point you mentioned, the stalemate where both sides understand or believe that they can't win, and then they start negotiating. So we're not there yet, and by the sort of statements by American officials, they believe Ukraine can win this war, which means in the months ahead, the potential for a quick resolution of this conflict, unfortunately, is diminishing. And since Putin is taking that step of punishing Poland and Romania for not paying for the natural gas in ruble, and then Germany is still somewhat hesitant about cutting its gas from Russia, which is very, which would be basically shooting themselves in the foot. They have decided to transfer some heavy arms to Ukraine, but it's through a more complicated and longer process that involves sort of parts being bought from Switzerland, etc. Switzerland doesn't want to sell those parts. So long story short, Germany is unable to take a very strong stance, which would, push Germany into recession. Under these circumstances, I'm going back to the beginning, but this conflict will probably prolong against the sort of wishes of so many people that really care about what's happening in Ukraine to civilians, what's happening to the economy in the region and the global economy, to be honest. So there is a lot of incentives at this point for negotiations and talks, but I'm not sure if the two sides are ready at all, especially since Russia has recently changed its strategy to focus on Donbass region instead of the entire country. So you and I discussed maybe we would touch upon some other developments in this past week. I believe Turkish president has just traveled to Saudi Arabia. Maybe you can tell us about that visit, Bora.
Yeah, many things are changing in the region. Middle East, Turkey's relations with Middle Eastern countries are moving into another direction after years of problems and conflict. Especially it started with UAE and then Israel, Egypt. So there is this reapproachment and recalibrating foreign policy in the region. And related to what you have explained about Russian energy and gas issues with European countries, I think this is also related with all these issues. Many people in Turkey, many analysts believe that Turkey was tried to be bypassed by a corridor in the northern Iraq and Syria, so that there will be a new route to Europe from the Gulf region. But now it's changing. Turkey has implemented its own policy, secured its borders, now making cross-border operations in Iraq and Syria, sidelining the PKK and other affiliated terrorist organizations. So Turkey actually put its military force into equation and changed the dynamics in the region. And I think this is paying back in a different way. Also, there are some other developments in the region. Biden's elections, their American reapproachment to Iranian issues. So Gulf countries feel that they have to counterbalance Iran. So I think this is one of the reasons why Turkey and Gulf countries are now working together, because there is a new kind of threat or problem, let's say, and there is more need for cooperation between Gulf countries and Turkey. Now, after this Khashoggi case, which became an issue between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, we all remember what happened. A journalist was assassinated in Saudi consulate in Istanbul, and after Turkey revealed what happened, Turkish-Saudi relations soured. But now we are in a new era, so this problem resolved by negotiations between Turkey and Saudi Arabia, and there is a change again within Saudi Arabian management administration. So I think all these things came together and enabled Turkish-Saudi reapproachment. Both countries have actually many things in common. Both Muslim countries, Turkey and Saudi Arabia, had very important trade relations in the past, and Turkey actually was never hostile against Gulf countries, especially Saudis, but because of a management change in Saudi Arabia, things moved into another direction. I think now Turkey and Saudi Arabia are mending the ties, and there will be more cooperation in order to maybe bring a new atmosphere into Middle East, because everybody has interests and many things at stake, and most countries are suffered during the last couple of years because of these political differences. I think Turkish president's visit, which is not an official one, as far as I know, still will play into a better relationship between Turkey and Saudis, and I think this will also help Turkish relations with other Gulf countries. We already seen President Erdogan visiting UAE. Their emir came to Turkey. I think there's a new atmosphere, and this is also, I think, related with the European energy issues, because now Germany and many other European countries has to divert their energy sources from Russia, which will be a problem, obviously, and the United States is putting pressure on many European countries in order countries to not buy energy from Russia. So the closest and the most, logical source is the Gulf region. So they have to find a way how to bring the gas and oil from the Gulf region to Europe. And Turkey is on the route. Turkey is the cheapest and secure and stable route to Europe. I think this is part of all these arrangements. At some point, I believe European Union, European countries will come to a point and they will change their attitude with Turkey, and they will accept that they have to work with Turkey for their energy security. I don't know if you agree with that.
Yes, sure. I think the fighting in the war in Ukraine really brought Turkey to the fore, and pushed Europeans to think a lot more seriously about regional security. Turkey has been talking about security for a long time, but Europeans keep focusing on other things, including treating the refugee issue as a sort of issue that needs to be kept in Turkey. But I think that will definitely have that impact on the Europeans going forward. And if they actually accept Ukraine into the Union, I don't know how they'll be able to continue saying no to Turkey. So we'll probably have more stronger debates on Turkey's EU membership in the years ahead, in the months ahead. In terms of energy, I agree with you, and that's kind of why Turkey is also making up with Israel. There have been attempts at normalization. I mean, economic relations have never suffered greatly. It has, for a while it was much harder, but the two countries trade, and then their trade volume has increased. Now they want to, also export maybe natural gas from Israeli sources through Turkey to Europe, but these projects are going to take time, and it's not going to have an influence on the war in Ukraine right away. Russia still has the upper hand on that front, like we saw with the gas cuts to Poland and Romania. It immediately shot up the price of gas by 17%, and at the same time, Gulf nations like Saudi Arabia, recently in the past several years, they have accepted Russia as a partner in their club, OPEC, right? OPEC Plus now. So they probably don't want to antagonize Russia by, undercutting the Russians in the energy sector. They're probably not going to rush to increase production. Biden, asked them already, and Saudi Arabia was more reluctant, partly because the Khashoggi thing that Biden had said really harsh words about Saudi Arabia, and partly because of the fact that the United States hasn't taken a strong stance against Iran as Saudi would have liked, not under Trump but under Biden, I mean. So these dynamics are also playing into this, but we've discussed this multiple times. It's in the region there is new alignments between countries because they do recognize that the United States is not willing to sort of take the issues upon itself. We used to always talk about peace process, but we no longer really talk about it because the United States doesn't see a viable process there. So it's practically not going anywhere, and nobody really talks about it. And then the United States is only focused on getting a deal with Iran, and now entirely focused on Ukraine. So the Middle Eastern nations are not going to sit around and simply, sit idly by. So they're talking to each other in a much deeper, much more, much busier manner, we should say. So I think it's going to be healthy for the region, but we'll see. We'll have to continue to observe and discuss these issues.
I have a completely different subject, if you would like to comment on that.
Sure.
What do you think about this Twitter sale? Because in the Middle East, remember when this Arab Spring started, the social media, Facebook, Twitter, so they were very instrumental what happened, especially in countries which there were, uprisings and other things. In the last 10 years, we have seen many things, especially in the US. It became very controversial after Donald Trump's account were suspended. Now Elon Musk, he bought Twitter. It's also an issue in Turkey. Twitter became a political arena. Every day we see one party or another, they are pushing a lot to be on TT list. We see lots of fighting going on. So you are in the States. What are the expectations? What do you think? How much impact will it have after Musk purchase in US, also in the Middle East? And in Turkey?
Thank you, Bora, for this question. I've been following this, and it's made the news quite a bit here. And as you said, there are larger trends, digitalization, the impact of social media. Nobody can live without social media anymore these days. We are all on it. We post, and Twitter is particularly important for people like you and me, analysts, journalists. Sometimes, there are trusted sources, there are trusted people. We follow them. We try to find out the latest on just about anything. And, there are good sides to it, bad sides to it. But like you said, when, political tensions in the United States increased so much, and there was a point where people were talking about a coup attempt in the United States, in Washington, D.C. So at that point, Twitter, YouTube, other social media channels felt like they felt pressure to focus on content moderation at a level that they hadn't before. So it created this whole dynamic, and then they started doing a lot of enforcement stuff on content. So there's been a big debate whether these channels should be, these forums should be worrying about content at all. And as you know, America, the Constitution in the United States, the first sort of amendment is freedom of speech. It's a very sort of strong, there's a strong belief in free speech in America. But, in practice, it often, has serious issues. And social media, blurs the lines between free speech and hate speech and, bad speech, disinformation and misinformation and all that. So the social media companies are under increasing pressure to moderate their content and change their policies, etc. So in this environment, Musk is promising that, he's going to introduce some things like, they're going to get rid of bots and focus on real people, and he wants a more free speech friendly Twitter. People are interpreting that as the return of Trump to the platform. We'll see if that happens. But the financial side is also interesting. Because of Musk, trying to buy Twitter, he has to sell Tesla stocks, and Tesla lost something like 17%, I think, 15-20% in the last couple days because of this. So on the one hand, he's offering to buy Twitter for $44 billion, but he's lost quite a bit of money on the Tesla side, and he's cost the investors of Tesla quite a bit of money. But Musk is Musk. So he does these things. When he takes the company private, Twitter, we're gonna see probably different policies in terms of content moderation. But I don't expect a radical change, to be honest. Maybe some things, but this platform is so established and it's complicated in its own way. I don't know if he can just, he also emphasizes that the platform has to obey the local laws. He kept repeating that. So maybe, Turkey in recent years has filed a lot of complaints with Twitter, but they didn't respond adequately, especially at the beginning. I don't know how it is now. You would know better. But maybe that will help other countries sort of bring their problems with the platform more easily to Twitter itself and have them take action. So, and in many countries, like Bora, in many countries, Twitter or Facebook, others, they can have a much bigger importance than, because it depends on economic levels of people, their education, etc. So it can all of a sudden be part of political disinformation campaigns, and there's a lot less recourse, unlike in the United States, right? Because Twitter has many more people here in the US, so they can act on it much quicker. But in other countries, India, many other countries, Twitter cannot respond as quickly. So anyway, maybe if they take another look at these issues, maybe other countries will be more friendly to Twitter. So, but we'll see. I mean, I'm just speculating on this.
I think especially in countries like Turkey, Twitter has turned to the main political platform after mass media, and lots of things happening we don't understand. It's not transparent. Sometimes you feel that one narrative is taken down with software. This is the feeling. Some narratives are boosted by Twitter or Facebook, we don't know. So Turkey is also trying to bring new regulations in social media platforms, internet media, because lots of disinformation is going on, and Turkey is in a special place. We have lots of terrorist organizations, lots of interest groups who you don't know who is doing what. So transparency is something that everybody probably would like to have. And I hope Elon Musk will bring this to Twitter. But as you know, as you said, we don't know. For me, if Trump's account is given him back, this can be an interesting and important sign, because while Iranian religious leader has an account and former US president, it's really difficult to explain, especially in a country like the US. So I think with this, we can end this show today. Thank you very much. And
thank you, Bora.
Hope to see you next time.
See you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.